This morning we got a new inflation number. Inflation is down to 3.2%, which is a good thing overall, but I am still concerned about a few things in the economy. I've got four numbers I need you to take a look at, and we need to decide what is going on and what we should be doing right now, both as consumers and investors. So let's quickly break it down. The good news, inflation is down to 3.2%. Now, the way inflation works, the way this inflation number works, is that we track from month to month. So prices still went up, okay? It still went up, but it only went up by 3.2%. The expectation was 3.3%. Hooray. Great, okay? But the goal here is to get it at 2%. That's the Fed's goal. So that is one thing. And I think most publications are saying that this is good news and that inflation has at least fallen or stalled to a degree where we can be a bit more predictable. And overall, yes, this is good. Because remember, I know people are still complaining because things are high, but we were at 9% not too long ago. Okay, this is a significant improvement from where we were. What I am more concerned about is these three facts. So the first one is this. Last month, really just last Friday, we got the latest job reports. We added 187,000 jobs. Great. Any year that any month rather, that we add new jobs is great, but this was well under the expectation of 200,000 jobs. We are starting to see jobs being added at a slower pace. Still being added, great, but is doing so at a slower pace. So at some point, if this continues, then we're going to start to see negative job growth at some point. Again, I'm saying at some point because it doesn't mean that's going to happen here in 2023. We only got 4 months left, and we need to see what's going to happen in 2024. My hope, obviously, is that we continue adding jobs for an indefinite amount of time. Okay, I want everybody to have as many options as they choose. But when we look at these options, here's the other part, especially in the inflation category. 90% of the increases that we have seen, especially over the last month, have come from housing and rent. That is not good. Okay, so we are seeing that whether it's rent or mortgages, this has become a lot more expensive and it's taking up a big chunk of everyone's budget. It is usually the highest thing that you pay for every month, which is normal. However, when that is spiking the majority of our inflation number, that's not good. That means it makes things a little more uncomfortable to live in and not the best economic situation. How does that play into the stock market? How does that play into your investing strategy? Well, remember, more than 2/3 of the American economy is based on people like you and people like me. We spend money that goes into the economy in one way or another. I spend money on Disney Plus. I spend money on Netflix. Netflix has a new subscriber. You guys see where this goes. We invest in it. We make money. Well, as things get tight, as rent continues to rise, you start cutting off a few things. And this is how these things trickle into the stock market, which trickles into your portfolio. And as we talk about portfolios, look at this stat, okay? We just found out yesterday that Bank of America sees that they're seeing an increase in withdrawals from 401ks by 36%. A 36% increase in people withdrawing from their 401ks. This is probably the most alarming stat, at least for me, because unlike doing other not great financial things, this one is an immediate tax on you. So for example, if you are pulling out of your 401k, you're under age 59 and a half, you're instantly paying a 10% penalty to the IRS and you are paying taxes right then and there. And that could be upward of 20%. 20% right off the top. And that is, I don't want to knowingly pay 20% of anything coming right off the top when I need the money. So that signals to me that there's a good chunk of people who have access to 401ks but are not in the best financial situation where you have to sit there and withdraw from that. That is an alarming stat for me, and hopefully this changes. When we were back in 2021 and 2022, we saw record balances, and we've talked about this before, that people had in savings. So people had money in savings, record amounts, and that was one thing that was driving inflation, because if you had $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in cash, you were good. You could bid up on a new car. You could pay more for goods and services left and right because you had the money. That money seems to have run out when people are starting to pull from their 401ks. And then the other stat that stood out, and I think this was something that everybody was talking about earlier this week, $1 trillion in credit card debt, a new record high. Okay, a new record high this is actually high as it was before the pandemic. we're going right back into credit card debt as a nation, and that is not something, from individual perspective, that's not something that you like to see. When you see higher credit card debt, people pulling from their 401ks, you're usually in a dire financial situation, and that is going to play out in one way or another. To make matters worse, when I'm connecting the dots here and seeing people take on more credit card debt, withdrawing from their 401ks, and hiring options are starting to fall. Again, 187,000 jobs is still large, but we're starting to see that trend down. How is that going to impact us as investors and consumers? And what are the things we should be doing right now? Okay, so from a consumer perspective, you obviously want to protect yourself. You definitely want to protect yourself. Pay off that credit card debt if you have it, and you want to do so for a few reasons. Number one, the more you have in credit card debt, the less you're putting in your portfolio. Okay, that was very simple. But also, we are seeing rising interest rates. We've been seeing that for more than 18 months at this point. You are paying way more for items on your credit card if you are paying an interest rate. The best way to do this is pay it off before that statement hits, and you're not paying those interest rates. That's what I do every single month. I don't swipe my card unless I know it's going to be paid off before the end of the month and before that whole balance cycle starts. So that's number one. Number two, if you haven't done this already, you obviously want to have as much in your savings account as you can up to that 6-month savings buffer, because should the job market get rough, which I pray does not happen, but if it does, you want to have enough in cash. And that does two things for you. One, gives you a little more comfort. Okay, it prevents you from going into credit card debt, and it prevents you from withdrawing from your 401k, or at least delays the time that you would need to pull from your 401k. Because again, even if you are in a hardship like that and you lose your employment or your main source of income, you still don't want to pull from it, because one, yes, you could get hit with the taxes and penalties, but also that's less money growing for you in the future. And taking $10,000 out, taking $25,000 out, or however much money can really impact you between now and the next 10 or 15 years because of where that money could have grown. So you'll be extremely careful there. As an investor, the question is here, if all this money is being diverted from our businesses, right, from our stocks, how is that going to impact things down the line? Now, we have already seen, for example, or we will see rather, holiday shopping, right? Where are people going to spend their money? And as prices have continued to rise, and as people are becoming a little bit more budget conscious, where are they going to start to see some behavior shifts? Also, don't forget this, October student loan debt, or I'm sorry, if you have federal student loans, those payments are going to come back. Choices are going to have to be made here, and those choices are not going to be great for the consumer, but also investors are going to see this in one way or another. People are already investing in stocks like SoFi. I'm not the most excited about that, but I have done a video on SoFi. I am more concerned about once these payments hit, I see rents going up, I see people taking on more credit card debt now. How are they going to spend at the later half of this year? How is this going to impact some of the stocks that you may own, right? So I pick on a Disney Plus because we had just talked about Disney the other day. Is, okay, well, I cut off Disney Plus, right? I may go from shopping from a, let's say, Kroger to a Walmart per se, or from a Target. And we've seen this happen a lot, where people switch from Target, which is known to be more expensive, to a Walmart. Maybe I'm delaying major purchases at my home. Maybe I'm not hiring a contractor to come and fix something at my house. I'm going to go shop at Lowe's instead. How are all of these things going to play out in the last part of 2023, and definitely what's going to happen in 2024. I'm still not expecting a recession in 2023, nor would I want to be that guy to be doom and gloom about everything. But I do have to state the reality that the American consumer is not in the right spot, or not in the best headspace or financial space, even though the numbers for the entire economy seem totally fine. But there is, I would say, a yellow flag that we do need to pay attention to and start to thread out what we need to do as consumers and investors. If you want to learn more about inflation and how it impacts the economy, what stocks to invest in, and how all of this stuff works, you want to make sure you check out this video right here.